Hello everyone, welcome to today's class. So today's topic will be about footwork. So warning up front, it's going to be a little bit of a lengthy video, but I will leave timestamps below for each thing and topic we discuss so that you can, leave off and, come back to it whenever you can and whenever it suits you. So for today, we're going to cover a few things. So first thing, when it comes to footwork, we're going to cover some common mistakes in structure and body and how we can fix that, because that will lead to everything else. And then we're actually going to cover different types of footwork that we have here. And after that, we're going to discuss different stances, as in, what is better, having your dominant foot forward or DFF, or having your non-dominant foot forward NDF. And how that can impact our technique or the play style that we choose to use. And after that, we might cover some exercises and how to strengthen your legs, and some exercises you can do at home to help speed up your progress when it comes to footwork and get you better faster. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with the structure. So first thing is that most people today, due to sedentary lifestyles, lots of sitting around, we tend to have a bit of a weaker knees and weaker back. And usually how this manifests is you will see people, when they start doing HEMA or, anything else, their knees are going to start falling in, usually something like this to the inside. It will maybe to the outside, but that's going to be a lot more rare. So usually knees will tend to buckle to the inside, both the foot behind and the foot that's in front. So basically, how do we solve this? Well, first of all, we need to get some strength back into our knees. The best thing usually is just to start walking around more and, actually let your legs feel your weight and carry it. But another thing we can do is, so once we enter stance, it's very important to focus on where our toes are looking and where our knee is looking. So, for example, if the toes and the knee is looking that way, if you ever do a lunge, well, guess what? You're gonna be going that way. And of course, if you go to an extreme where your knee can no longer support such movement, your knee is going to buckle, your tendons or ligaments might get injured, and it's not going to be pretty for anybody. So do yourself a favor and start strengthening your knees fast. So how can you do it and how can you make it easier on you? So once you enter a stance, first check down, literally just look at your feet and be like, okay, is this looking forward? Yes, it is. Is this looking at a 90-degree angle there? Yes, it is. Okay. My stance, a little bit wider, there we go. And now, you want to sit down into the stance until your knee actually starts hiding your toes. So when you can no longer see your toes from your knee once you look down at an angle, this means that you have entered a proper stance, okay? Then you want to focus on kind of like keeping your legs open a bit by pushing your knees to the outside, both the front one and the back one. And once you have kind of gotten into a comfortable 90-degree angle and everything seems fine, from there on you'll start sitting around a little bit, just letting the tendons do their job and muscles, scream a little bit at you after not being used for such a long time. No, so that's our kind of first common structure mistake. And the second common structure mistake has to do with the back. So because a lot of us spend our days, in front of computers, in chairs or whatever, we tend to develop this kind of C-shaped back position with the butt kind of protruding towards the outside. And this happens mainly because, first of all, the muscles as we sit get extended, so they lose their ability to compress correctly, while these ones at front start to shorten. And then what happens is essentially you get something like this. Now, the way to fix this is, in your daily life, you want to focus on pushing your pelvis back in and your waist so that you kind of get a straight line. Another thing that can help you is you can put your arms behind like this, like so, and then basically just pull them down until it forces you into like a straightened position. Yeah, I know, this is why grandpas all over the parks, all over the world walk like this, to strengthen their back. But the point stands, so it's very useful. It will, in the beginning, feel very strenuous. It will not be comfortable. And you will start feeling your core engage a lot more because now they have to learn how to be properly compressed and not just relax. And yeah, but over time, you will see as you walk, it will slowly start becoming like a second thought. And then after a while, you won't even have to think about it anymore. And your spine will thank you for it. But how does this impact our stance? So Because most people tend to protrude their butt out, you should already be starting to see that I'm kind of starting to lean this way instead of being completely straight as in here. So you need butt out, I'm already falling out, which of course then impacts already the quality of our techniques, how we can execute them, the speed and all that. So a little bit from the side, so this basically looks, you see, like this. Somewhere here, the butt is out and I'm starting to lean and fall. So how do we fix this? So once you enter the stance and you have already checked your knees, so now you want to check your ass and you kind of look, okay, can I see my butt here? Yeah, I can kind of see it, So you tuck it in. So basically you want to have your pelvis pushed inside and being right underneath you, okay? So basically, again, you fold back in and you sit into your stance like this. Okay, so now if I take a look around, I can actually no longer see my butt here, okay? So this is kind of a proper stance, common mistakes that people do. And this is most important things to fix, not just because of HEMA, but because it's really going to affect your lifestyle later down the line. And once we start advancing into old age, the existential dread is about to set in. But, keep your knees and your back healthy. You will thank me for it later. Now, so these are common mistakes with footwork. Now we're going to pass on to footwork. So we have simple steps first. So we have a simple step forward and simple step back. They're also commonly known as advances or retreats. So the way we do them is like this. So you will enter your stance. I will do them in all directions, don't worry. So we take a sit into our stance, okay? And when we move forward, it's a little bit of loading on the back foot. We lift up the front foot, step, and then we pull back the back foot. Going backwards, the logic is exactly the same except in the opposite direction. So we front load a little bit the front foot, we lift up the back foot, we step, and we bring the front foot backwards, okay? Key notes here is when you're stepping, you want to have equal moving of both feet. So you don't want to step this much with this foot and then this much with this foot. Or you don't want to step this much with this foot and then this much with this foot, okay? So you want to keep yourself in a stance. So if this foot moves a little bit forward, the other foot also moves a little bit forward. If this foot moves a little bit back, this foot also moves a little bit back, okay? So another good thing to know about this is that you don't want to do too big of steps because big steps mean big tempos, and the better your opponents are, they will find a way to exploit this and, most likely thrust you as you're, having one foot off the ground, because at this moment we're all very vulnerable because we're not connected to the ground anymore, so we have lost a lot of our stability, okay? Plus, you cannot really advance or retreat from that position because you're already in motion, and until a certain motion is finished, you cannot start another one. So, one more time from the sides. So, step forward, step back, and from the forehand, it will look like this. Step forward, step back. Now, another thing while we're front. So you really don't want to have your feet kind of like in line, exactly like this, okay? Because moving forward, you might trip, or moving backwards, you might trip, okay? Leave yourself a little bit of space. Usually a foot width apart should be enough for you to be able to move your legs clearly, okay? And another thing is, when you get up, don't raise your foot all up in the air, even if you're making a small step. Basically, how it should look like is basically a glide above the floor line. So the less you can lift your foot and step forward, the better, but don't drag your foot across the ground either. So lift a little bit, glide, and then stomp down, okay? And all the while, make sure that you're not leaning forward or leaning backwards while you're stepping, okay? So these are all simple steps forward. Like, they are the most used. You are going to spend 90% of any match or any training in them, so get familiar with them. Now, we have variations of these steps. So the next step we're going to cover is going to be the gathering step. So basically, a gathering step is a little bit like a false step in a sense that it can allow you to test out your opponent's reactions and see what they're going to do. Also, it's a non-committed step, so you can very easily continue it or, back out and go back to your previous position. So how does that look like? So in this case, we have entered the stance, and for example, if I want to go with a gathering step forward, I first gather my back foot almost in line to my front foot, and then I step with my front foot if I want to go forward, or if I decided that that's not a good idea, I will step back. Same logic applies, we're going backwards. So, but first I will gather my front foot backwards, and then I will either abandon it, go backwards to my stance, or I will continue where I wanted to go back, okay? So this is a gathering step. Again, very useful when we're testing out opponents' reactions, when we're not sure what's going to happen, and also they allow us to kind of sneakily enter into distance, because if we are, for example, preparing a lunge from here, it's very visible that we're going to start and lean, but you know, once we're a little bit in movement, this is not as easily visible, and if you're fast enough, you can actually connect the two together, which will lead to an extended lunge, and you know, of course, a lot more distance to cover and a lot more surprise because you will already be closer to your opponent. Let's see. After this, we're going to have what I call passing step. Now, small caveat, passing steps are anything where one foot passes the other, and it's not exactly clear all the time what exactly are passing steps, so this is how I named them. So if you look at somebody else's videos, or you know, just read the sources or whatever, you'll find some differences about it, but for now, this is how I like it. If you like it too, great. If not, find your own way to name it, it's totally fine. So, to me, a passing step is when we are in stance and one foot just passes the other such. Let me just actually go a little bit here so I can say visible. So, for example, if I want to go forward, back foot passes the front foot. So I kind of get into this cross position, and then I uncross my feet, and then here. Going backwards, the idea is exactly the same. So if I'm going backwards, my front foot first goes back. Again, I'm in this cross position, and then I uncross my feet, and I'm here. Okay? So, looking forward from it. So basically it's this. Cross, uncross, cross, uncross. Okay? Now, what is this useful for? So passing steps are very useful for either aggressively covering distance or for getting out very fast. So let's say we want to make a very aggressive attack forward with a thrust, but we don't exactly want to do a lunge yet. It's a very good thing to actually lean, pass, and then get another step in, okay? Or if we are going backwards, maybe, you know, this is not fast enough to get us out of range, so kind of like jumping crossed and crossed is going to really allow you to get out fast. So this is mainly the use of passing steps, kind of greatly and aggressively covering distance, or again, escaping backwards, okay? Now, after that we have what I call switching steps, and I call them switching steps because the stance or the foot that is up front is switched. So, going from the side, this looks like this. So, if I'm switching steps forward, I switch like this. If I'm switching a step backwards, I switch like this. So the way we do this is we kind of again front load the foot a little bit, and we kind of carry the weight through until we step, and then we just rotate the leg that was up front into a 90-degree angle. Going backwards, the same thing. So I kind of already first load a little bit the back foot, and then I pass my foot, and then I rotate to get up back into a stance. Okay? Now, from front position, something that's very important and that people oftentimes get wrong is that they will start rotating their torso as they're switching feet. So I will grab a sword for this one because it's going to be easier to illustrate. So ideally how it should look like is you should have your torso separated from your waist movement so that once you switch forward, the blade stays exactly where it was, okay? But beginners tend to do this. They tend to make a switch and then they rotate their torso with them, and as you can see, the blade starts looking all over the place, okay? So try to avoid that. What helped me get over this is I kind of imagined that my feet are on rails, okay? And that my torso is always caught in between these rails looking forward. So as I moved my feet in a switching step tap, I would stay within the bounds of the rails, and that would allow me to stay on point looking forward, okay? And let's see, what else do we have? So another part of steps that we have here are going to be the curved steps. So curved steps are kind of like side steps, but as the name implies, they follow a certain curvature. So these are the steps that I actually borrowed from the Spanish destreza, but they work really well also for longsword. They make a lot of sense. So the way you would do them is that, let's say that the camera is my opponent. So instead of doing traditional side steps just left and right, what we do is we go, let me actually drop this, we don't need it anymore. What we actually do is we kind of sidestep and then turn a little bit, okay? Or if we were going to the opposite side, we kind of sidestep and we turn a little bit. So curved steps are very good as aggressive steps. So when we want to get offline movement, but the opponent is not coming towards us, curved steps I find are very good for this. So, and of course, again, camera is a little bit far away, so I will start looking skewed. But let's say if my opponent was exactly the camera, it would be kind of like this, or a little bit like this. So the center line would then be free, and I would be able to attack my opponent at an angle. Okay, either them or the blade, depending on what I want to do. From the side, this is a little bit how it looks like. So you see we'll be in one line, and then kind of step a little bit forward, and then turn to the side, and you can see like I've already started moving at a curve, going back and then going to the left side, again step, and you see I'm kind of starting to have this curve of movement. The most important thing is that always step with a foot that you're going towards in that direction first. So if I'm going right, right foot first. If I'm going left, left foot first, okay? Even if I switch my feet like this, still same thing applies. Going left, left foot first, going right, right foot first, okay? All right, that's it for this. Now we're going to move on to simple side steps. So simple side steps are, I find them better as defensive moves. So side steps, if you just execute them either to the right, so right, left, or left, right, they're going to get you out of range, okay? Because if you're, again, the camera is my target, if I move to the left, right now, I've actually distanced myself from the opponent, and unless the opponent is coming forward, nothing will be achieved. So this is why they're better as defensive steps. So they will get you out of the way of the attack and allow you to maintain distance, okay? And also give you like a superior angle of attack. So again, let's say the opponent is coming to thrust us, small steps and cuts, okay? Or even the opponent is trying to cut you, small step and then countercut, okay? So again, very simple to execute. Just remember, keep simple steps for defense and keep the curved steps for offense. Now, another thing that we have in longsword is going to be the triangle steps. So the triangle steps are they're kind of better executed always to the opposite side of your front foot, okay? So if I have my front foot loaded here, the better step would be to get left foot in and then bring in my right. Or if I'm with my left foot forward, to step right and then left. They kind of resemble curved steps a little bit combined with switching steps, okay? So they're going to allow you to cover more distance, so they're going to be more aggressive and more depth, and I find that they're especially good when mixed with zwerkhaus. So, for example, you're here and you start with a zwerkhau here, for example. So you see, it allows me to kind of maintain stability while also getting into my opponent, covering distance, and also being stable to deflect any kind of attack or pressure coming from this side. And of course, the same thing goes for the opposite side. So if I start here and I start doing the zwerkhau, I step here. Again, same thing. I am in proper structure to resist any kind of pressure that's coming from this side. Okay? Now, last thing that we are going to cover for today when it comes to steps are going to be lunges. So lunges are, again, from the position of a stance. Basically, you load your back foot and you kind of want to push into the ground and then launch yourself straight forward. So common mistake is people go up and forward, don't go up and forward, just forward. So from here it's bam, like this, okay? And of course, when we are recovering, you're going to have to push into the ground with your front foot and get back into stance, okay? So, let me see, is there like anything else to cover about this? No, like I said, most important thing is don't bob up and down when you're doing your lunges. Yes, and don't go too extremely forward. So of course, lunges can be small, like up, they can be medium, up, or they can be deep lunges, like this, okay? Anything deeper than a 90-degree angle with your foot is going to run a risk of injuring your knee. Okay, so something like this is going to risk injuring your knee. But even if you do not, for any reason you go past this, it's going to become extremely difficult going backwards and, you know, defending from an attack if your lunge did not connect properly. So let's say if I'm here, in order to go back, I first have to correct my foot and then push off, which just adds an extra tempo that is not really necessary. Like, it's better just to fix your assessment of distance and where you can do a lunge than, you know, to just go for extreme lunges. It's better overall, and, you know, in long term it will anyways improve your knowledge of distance more than, you know, kind of cheating it. So yeah, no need to do this. It's just gonna get you injured. Anything else? No. And these are all the steps we have. And now I'm going to cover a little bit the topic of having our dominant foot forward, so DFF, or the non-dominant foot forward, NDF. So what I mean by that is that if you're a longsword tournament enjoyer, you will see that a lot of people are kind of in this position, okay? So what this position allows us is, it allows us to kind of hide behind our blade completely, especially, for example, when we're in Longsword. So the opponent has to deal with a full length of the blade before they come towards us. This is also something that will resemble stances like in rapier, saber, side sword, and all that. So if you have done any other weapons, you should be very familiar with it. So as you can see, my body is neatly hidden behind my sword. Now with the NDF, you see, even if I take the same stance, more of me is open now, okay? So, is one then just purely better than the other? Well, no. They all have their uses. So, NDF, DFF, so dominant foot forward, is, so it will allow you to go more explosively into lunges forward, and it will allow you to cover distance with less reaction time from the opponent. Okay, so looking back, why is this? Because when we're moving in simple steps forward and back, it's very easy to turn a simple step into a thrust very fast. And because of this transition, it's easy to catch people off guard. Now, the drawback of this is that you have more extreme motions with your body. So if you have seen anybody fencing, like for example Brittle or Antec, or you know, anybody who has like similar methodology when it comes to their fencing, you will sometimes see them, you know, going for these extreme lunges, cuts to the legs, going back and so on. So it really requires a lot of strength and speed and also good conditioning in order to be able to maintain such explosiveness. And again, like, it leaves you more open if something goes wrong, okay? While NDF, so with the non-dominant foot forward, basically, even if we are a little bit more open in the body, we compensate by having better structure, and we can cover equal distance as with DFF, except we are not going to risk instability in extreme body movement. What do I mean by that? So, going back to dominant foot forward, so DFF, so from here, puff. I'm kind of now in an extreme position. If I was with an NDF, so there we go. You see, I've kind of covered the exact same distance, but I'm in a much more better position body-wise to do, you know, anything else, to either continue advancement, continue defending, and so on. So the drawback though of the NDF is that it's more visible as a movement and it's slower. So the tempos are bigger. So me, for example, coming to cut with NDF is this. Me doing the same cut with DFF, okay? So you kind of have to decide what you value more in that moment. Stability or explosiveness, basically. A good example of a person that really heavily uses the NDF would be Artofama. So he almost exclusively moves with switching steps when it comes to fighting. And I think he's a very good person to study. And another person that has like a very focused stance on an NDF, I would say, is Miro Latela, if I remember correctly, because he tends to go with very strong shield house from his non-dominant foot forward when it comes to tournaments. So you can kind of see exactly how this distance and like this stability plays into the quality of technique or the power it brings. And yeah, so I would also heavily advise not to stick to either particularly. I think a good fencer should have use of both. Of course, everybody will develop a preference over time, but just because you have a preference doesn't mean you should completely abandon the other thing. In fact, you should at least practice it enough so that if your opponent uses it, you can know what to expect from such a stance, what its strengths and weaknesses are. Okay. Now, the last thing, strengthening the legs. So, besides just, common sit-ups, okay, there are a couple of variations that I would suggest, and these mostly focus on, again, a little bit like plyometrics and a little bit on tendon strength. So instead of doing, like I said, a common squat, so try to go down as slowly as you can when you do a squat, okay? And once you reach a 90-degree angle, sit there a little bit and then jump up explosively, okay? So this will allow you to practice both the slow twitch muscles and the fast twitch muscles, okay? And it's going to help you build like variation in your strength. So basically it's a 2-in-1 exercise. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, for beginners, if you have ever went to school and you were naughty at the gym, most likely they made you sit against the wall in this position, okay? And this is very good for beginners, but if you have already moved past that stage, we're going to do something more advanced. So these are called the skis. And basically the logic is the same, except you're going to get on the tip of your toes like this, and you're going to lean your heels against the wall, and then you're going to kind of go down with the wall until you reach like a skiing position, okay, like this. Now, of course, in the beginning, start at a bit of a wider angle, and then, as you go down, eventually try to get to like a 90-degree angle and stay there. The goal is about 45 seconds, 3 times, so 3 sets with 2 minutes break in between. But of course, as you get better, up to let's say a minute 15 seconds would be ideal for this exercise. Another thing that you can do is you can do either the Mongolian squats or the wide squats, doesn't matter how you call them. So you start from your normal shoulder width stance and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? And once you have reached about this width, you sink down into a stance and basically you spend your time here. Washing dishes, brushing teeth, doesn't matter. Just make sure that your pelvis is again tucked in. And over time, as you get comfy with it, what you can start doing is you can start lifting feet alternately like this, okay? So this is going to add more pressure on the tendons and it's going to allow you to work your legs more. Okay, so this is another very good exercise that is going to help you a lot with your feet. And at the end of the day, the best exercises you can do is actually just doing the footwork. So it doesn't require a lot of space at home. It doesn't require a lot of width. So what you need is basically what you see here on camera, about a meter in front of you and a meter back, and half a meter to a meter width, just so that you can pass your body. And all you need to do is forward, back, any combination of steps and so on. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope this is going to help you out along on your HEMA journey. All the best to you, and hopefully see you for the next lesson. Thank you again. Have a great day.